Oz.
Jill, so what's your general intuition on the separation of church and state? And when I say church, that's the larger journalistic institutions that exist today, and state, which is our Twitterverse, which has any sort of opinion about anything at any point in time based upon how they're feeling.
So that is, it's a really easy question, but the answer just sucks so bad nobody wants to have the conversation, right? What's a real journalist? James Earl Jones is hired by CNN, and he goes, this is CNN. And goes, woo, that's CNN, right? They're a self-appointed news organization. They're so excited. And they build CNN Center, and they get so excited, they spend millions of dollars, and Ted Turner gets really rich, and if they fire him, that's not his fault. And, because he says he's the news giver, and he's a self-appointed news giver. So let's have a quick talk about that. Who remembers the protests in Tehran a few months back that made Twitter get on the map, right? So John King gets on CNN on State of the Union, his show, and he puts up a whole bunch of screens with like MySpace and Facebook and Twitter feeds, and he's reading Twitter feeds and Facebook feeds from who knows who. I mean, Joe terrorist in Tehran on the square, oh, they're saying this and that. So that's not in my trust circle. That is absolutely not in my personal trust circle. I'm looking at John King going, huh? And I'm watching it very skeptically, although most people wouldn't. I get a direct message in Twitter, a DM in Twitter. That's a direct message. It's a form of just someone just sending you a message on Twitter from a young lady, a very close friend of mine, who's actually in the Television Academy here in New York, who works for Al Jazeera English. And she tweets to me, Shelley, I don't know where John King's getting his info. There are 250,000 people here. There can't be 2,500 people in the square. I'm standing here. Now, she's in my trust circle. I believe her. Right? I'm looking at John King, who's taking weird information from people he doesn't know, trying to broadcast. So Ashton Kutcher has 4 million Twitter followers or something like that. Is he a social networker or is he a broadcaster? I would argue he's a broadcaster using a crippled medium. He can't know the 4 million people. They're meaningless, right? To him, he's just using 140 characters to broadcast out. But a housewife in New Jersey with 25 people that follow her on Twitter, with 50 people on her Facebook friends, all of whom are about picking the kids up and who's doing smack and who's doing that. She's the thought leader in that group. And when she gets news, that news is real. And the people around her trust her. And you want to know how you judge how good that is? How much they retweet or how much they repropagate it. And if you need to see a phenomenal negative example of that, Toyota was destroyed in 11 hours and 18 minutes by social media. A company that has been the safest car company in this country, or thought to be the safest car company in this country, was decimated. Now, who do you trust for that news? People have their own trust circles. And in fact, that's the point. If a government can't earn its trust into your trust circle, then how can they govern you? That was really my point that I was trying to make. It's like, if we trust people for the traffic and the weather that are our friends who are feet on the street, and we decide that these are the people who've earned our trust, and we believe them, then external forces that interrupt us, like TV commercials that interrupt us, and news people that we don't know, strangers are going to become incredibly less interesting to us as social media technology allows us to form very interesting, overlapping trust circles. It's what's coming, and there is no such thing as a real journalist anymore. There's just journalism you trust. Ouch.
Hi, yeah. I guess I'm a little bit confused, and I'll refer to an anecdote about what you're saying about the vulnerability of being in a digital age versus the information control and the China model. Because my dad's best friend is literally the black pen in China. And being a liberal New Yorker, I've had this conversation with him many, many times. And what he says, he kind of compares, what he throws back to me is this. He says, well, you guys have your Fox News, and there's a big swath of population that believes Fox News to be true under the false pretense of having many choices. And so what he says about the Chinese censorship is one, of course, they want to prevent Tiananmen Square, and that's, obviously up for debate about, philosophy behind that. But he also says, we make sure that we track down hackers, that we make sure that, the cyberspace army, if you will, try to keep this netizens very safe. But it also says, look at the phenomenon of, this is actually in the New York Times magazine recently about the whole, self-regulation and how people on the internet are actually getting, doing these human flesh searches. He's like, we're not actually censoring negative propaganda for city officials, for instance. We encourage the people on the internet to do that, to look at that information and seek their own form of justice. it's not like our goal is to completely clamp down on all negative information towards the government. So he basically says, you know, what's better, right? Either having a Fox News where people take it gospel, or having a controlled environment where people feel safe.
I hear you loud and clear, and I'm going to give you not the answer because I wish I had it. I'm going to give you the way to think about the answer, because I think it's more important for us to have a way to think about this answer collectively than to hear my answer. When the founders of America put America together, they decided to make a liberal democracy in the form of a republic. We would elect our leaders to make our laws. Our leaders would have a majority rule, but the minority would always be heard, and then the majority, they vote, the majority would win, and that would become the law, and they move on after Socratic debate to the next topic. And they brought people in from all walks of life, and they formed the democracy that we live in today, fashioned that way. And they also decided that the press should be free. And what they really meant by that was not freedom of expression, which is the shorthand. They really meant that, like, if you work for somebody and they say you can't wear a brown tuxedo every day to work, you can't, because that's not the government telling you. Your boss is telling you that. You have no freedom of expression in a workplace. They're simply saying that the government can't write a law that says you can't wear a brown tuxedo. That's not going to be cool. Although the government probably should write a law like that, they can't. So now we have ourselves in a very funny place. For the first time, literally in the history of mankind, you, me, everyone here is as powerful as NBC or Fox. It's just unprecedented. It's not that you couldn't write a letter to the editor and get a smart idea published or get publicized or something big couldn't rise to the top. After all, a bunch of guys with clay pipes and tankards of mead figured out that they needed to throw the British out of America. They got people to pick up guns and commit treason to do it. So you can get a big idea done without technology. But now, you literally can be a world power, information powerhouse. You personally, any one of us, has that power in our hand. And not only that, the information mutates. It exhibits all of the attributes of being alive. It is born, it grows up, it mutates, it procreates. Only one thing is different. It never dies. It's just indelibly, it's forever, it lives forever. So interestingly, we're finding ourselves where freedom of the voice, our own voices now can really be heard. And we're learning as a society that those filters that are imposed by the Chinese government might not be a bad thing. The filters imposed by America, we have to rethink the policy that we have about how we do what we do, because we've never been here. This is so unbelievably new. And it's the sociology that's interesting to me, right? This technology empowers a change. The first day you bought movie tickets online as opposed to looking at the paper. Two technologies happened that empowered you. Your computer was on, you didn't have to wait for it to boot up, and you had a broadband connection. That didn't cause you to look at the movie timetable, it empowered you to do so.
And I think that's what you said makes a lot of sense about power.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't have an answer, and I think your question is valid, but if you guys want to take something away from here that's meaningful, frame the questions, right? Frame the questions in the context of every one of you are empowered that deeply by this technology, and now, how will our sociology change, and how will our society change based on our ability to do this? I find that as totally fascinating, and by the way, every day, there's a new crazy thing in the paper that tells you that I'm right. Yesterday, Vodafone was found. They're sending out HTC Android-based phones that had viruses in them. You hook up your cell phone to your computer, and your computer gets a virus. Not on the network, from an external cell phone. It's like, wow, the criminals are getting smarter every day, and the information age is getting crazy. So we should just start to remember where we are.
Well, thank you.
All right.